Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we're going to take a look at another of these Takara Tomy figures. These are the newer Takara Tomy figures, as we recently took a look at the Fukuraptor. Well, this is the Fukuisaurus, and they kind of released both of these figures at the same time, and both were really surprising, just kind of obscure species I wouldn't have expected to come from Takara Tomy, but definitely really excited that they did. But you can see a box here sporting the image of the Fukuisaurus here on the front, and then if we take a look at pretty much everywhere else, you're not going to find too much else. You've got another image over here on the side of the Fukuisaurus, pretty cool looking as far as that goes, and then an image here on the back as well. So I'm really psyched to get this figure out of the box and take a look at it, as I am definitely a fan of the Takara Tomy line. So let's go ahead and break it out of its box right now. So here is our Fukuisaurus, and I don't know how well it's going to stand. I normally don't have any type of standing issues with the Takara Tomy figures, so we'll see once I get these legs, I guess, positioned correctly. There we go. So I guess we just have to kind of aim the dinosaur in a little bit of an upward position, but here out of the box, it looks pretty darn cool, I will say that. It's a pretty nice looking sculpt detail-wise and an interesting paint job. Pretty nice looking paint scheme, I think, for the figure. Nothing over the top and flashy or crazy, but decent enough, I guess. So let's just go ahead and get a closer look at this really cool looking Fukuisaurus right now. So starting up here at the head of the Fukuisaurus, you can see some pretty darn nice looking texturing to the head sculpt of the figure. You can see definitely the skin texture in general looks really nice in the head area of the dinosaur, and you can also see the nostrils sculpted out right there. If my camera would stay focused on it, the figure's head is so small it's apparently a little hard to keep it focused, but you can see the beak is painted with a nice dark gray, and generally the coloration up here on the face is just this light green, and it transitions to a nice kind of an off-white here on the underside. Really nice smooth transition there between those colors. You can also see the eye is painted with a yellow and a nice black pupil, and it's perfectly placed. No sloppiness right there. And you can also see a dark green pickup right there in the eyebrow area, and that kind of engulfs the entire top of the head right there. Really nice texturing up here as well. It's a kind of like a fine texturing, I would say, for the head of the figure. Moving down into the neck, you can continue to see some pretty nice looking skin texture overall. Again, the figure being so small and the texturing being so fine, it's a little hard to pick up on at certain points, but it definitely looks quite nice. You can also see the throat in general of the dinosaur right there as we move down into the body. The shoulder blade is elaborated a little bit right there. You can see that quite nicely in the sculpt. And you also have some nice texturing as you move down into the arms. The arms look very nice. The nails are painted with a nice dark gray, similar to the beak coloration that we have up there on the face. And you can see as far as the coloration goes, we pretty much just have the light green again, and then that dark green that kind of stripes down in certain spots. And then we have a few alternate little areas of like some spots showing up here and there on the dinosaur in the stomach region, and the arm and shoulder area as well. You can see that the texturing in the stomach region actually looks really nice. I love that skin texture. I actually want to buy a few Takara Tomy figures, I think, at some point and repaint them just to see how good I can make them look, because I think they definitely have the sculpt for a nice new paint job, something a little bit more realistic than what Takara Tomy gives them. But honestly, what we have here is actually quite nice overall, and the actual texturing here in the stomach region, again, it really gives you the feeling of like that large animal feel as far as the way that the skin looks. You can see coming back up here into the top, you kind of have like the spinal column running along quite nicely here in the back. Some more beautiful texturing here in the thigh, moving down into the calf. You can see the calf muscle is pretty nicely elaborated there. And you can also, in general, take a, I guess, like note of the musculature in the thigh. It's not like overly defined or anything, but it's definitely there. You can see as we move down into the foot, we have some more of those green kind of splotches here and there on the leg, all the way down into the upper part of the foot, and then the foot itself looks pretty nice sculpt-wise, and you can also see the nails are painted with a dark gray, just like we saw on the hands and in the beak area. And then coming back here, again, look at the really smooth transition between those colors. I absolutely love how smooth that transition is, and the skin texture continues to look pretty darn nice overall. Once you get back here into the tail, that really nice coloration continues, and again the dark green kind of stripes down all throughout the animal and all throughout the figure. There's not really too much color-wise going on. I mean, sometimes Takara Tomy can deliver a really cool looking paint scheme with like some nice shading and alternate variation of color, but on this Fukuisaurus, it's pretty much just 3 tones of color and nothing else. but I still think it looks pretty nice overall as far as the coloration that is included. Again, the head sculpt looks really good over here. The eye paint is yet again really nicely placed, no sloppiness as far as that goes, and the entire figure as a whole is pretty much going to look exactly the same on this side as what we had just seen on the previous side, due to it being kind of an articulated figure, and there's not really much difference going on as far as the figure goes, except for the arm you can see on this side is in a little bit of a slightly different position than the arm on the further side, and the hands and everything look good over here, nicely painted nails, doesn't really appear to be sloppy or anything in that area. And the leg is a little bit further forward on this side compared to the leg on the previous side, so that's pretty much the only differences that I can see as far as the sculpt goes on this side in comparison to the opposing side. The foot sculpt looks really good over here as well. You can, I think, see a little bit more of the foot sculpt to get a better idea of what the foot sculpt looks like over here, but honestly it looks really good. Of course, you do have that seam right there where the ball joint is in place to articulate the tail and everything. That's just kind of like one of the Takara Tomy gimmicks if you are not familiar with Takara Tomy, and you have never seen one of these figures before. That's kind of just what they're known for, is those weird ball joints and those kind of awkward large seams. But honestly, it's something that you'll probably become accustomed to. It'll grow on you as time goes on. But this is a really cool looking figure, and I'm really happy that Takara Tomy decided to make a Fukuisaurus, as there are so few figures out there of the species in general. But definitely a really nicely done figure overall. As with most Takara Tomy figures, it is quite small, and you could probably tell that obviously from the closer look right there, but as far as a measurement goes, you're looking at about the 4.5-inch range, or around 11.5 centimeters in length, and for the position it's standing in currently, about just under 2.25 inches, or about 5.5 centimeters roughly, closing in on 6 maybe. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Takara Tomy Fukuisaurus, and you can definitely see next to these guys here that the Fukuisaurus is pretty much in mini form, I would say, as far as the size goes. It's definitely a very small figure, without question, especially in comparison to Robert Muldoon right there. You can really see the smaller size overall of this figure. And then, of course, you have some articulation with the figure, but there's not too much. You don't have any type of head or neck articulation, no arm articulation. You do have articulation here in the legs and in the tail, and that's pretty much it. You can make the tail go up, down. You can make it go left and right, but you have to turn it because the tail is on a swivel. And now you can make it go that direction, but it really kind of messes up the flow of the paint job doing it that way. But regardless, you do have some articulation, some fun articulation on the figure. So this Takara Tomy Fukuisaurus is another really cool Takara Tomy figure. I'm definitely getting quite the collection, I think, at this point of Takara Tomy figures, as I have acquired a pretty strong number of them. And I must say, the more Takara Tomy figures I get into my collection, the more I kind of fall in love with the figures and their style. They are actually really cool figures overall, and I feel like they're severely underrated because they actually have really highly detailed sculpts on them most times, and you can really see that here on this Fukuisaurus. And in fact, I feel like they're just improving leaps and bounds as time goes by. Maybe not so much in the paint job department, because with these being some of the newer figures, I feel like the paint isn't quite as nice as what I had seen previously from Takara Tomy. But that being said, the sculpts are phenomenal, honestly, on some of these newer ones, and this Fukuisaurus is a prime example of that. I think the sculpt is really nicely done on the figure as a whole, really nice fine detailing, kind of like a softer texturing to the body, but it looks really good and I think works well for the species, and I feel like all of the paint application on it, although maybe not super realistic, is nicely applied. It's all very carefully applied. There's no sloppiness or anything really that you can see. The nails are nicely painted on both the hands and the feet. The eyes are perfectly placed, as is the paint on the beak. So although the paint application may not be the most realistic as far as like tones and stuff, I think the actual colors used are definitely very realistic, very nicely done, and 100% a coloration I could see the animal being. I just expect a little more color variation to make it look a little more realistic, and that's something that Takara Tomy has done in the past, but not so much on the two newest figures I've reviewed. But regardless, I still think it's a really nice look for the figure. Beautiful looking paint scheme, just not the best one in the world, but still pretty nice overall. Beautiful looking sculpt, and then you have some really cool articulation as well. So the figure as a whole is a really nice figure, and definitely a very cool addition to the Takara Tomy line now with a Fukuisaurus included Again, something I did not expect, but a really nice and welcome surprise. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can do just that. As I purchased mine on AliExpress, that's where I'll link you to, so make sure you check the description, go buy this very cool Fukuisaurus, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.